Hello, everyone. I'll just give everyone a chance to settle in and join the show. We've already got 100 people in here. We'll just keep counting. If somebody wants to write, oh, Megan says hello. She's in there. Hey, Linda, where's Linda? What's my fictionary word? That's what I want to hear. There you are. Kindness is the word. So everything we run at Fictionary, our most important thing is kindness. And by kindness, I don't mean like give fake critique. I mean, when you give critique, give it in a kind fashion that is actionable and helpful, and also tell writers what they do great. So kindness is our word. Oh, kindness. I like you already. Thank you, Susan. I like you too. See, that is in the spirit of kindness. You can tell I'm a little bit excited. We're rolling on up to 200 people here, so I'll give a few more. And be kind to yourself. Yes, Linda, that is a great message. Linda was just at the London Book Fair hanging out with the Fictionary crowd. Hey, Toronto, right near me. Hi, Shireen. Nice. Oh, you've way at the beginning. Wow, it's changed so much. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Kelly. This is needed as water in the desert. Be kind to your keyboard. Well, sometimes that's hard. Look at, we are already being asked, what was the coupon code for Fictionary? Well, our lovely Lisa Lepke is here to answer that question in the chat for me, so I don't have to stress out about things in the chat. So totally open to questions. If you put them in the Q&A, I'll actually see them. The chat seems to go by too quickly that I can't catch up and follow it. So Q&A is the place to be. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk for about 30 minutes on the theory behind story editing. And then we're going to go to a Q&A. If we run out of time, I will be in the break rooms. And also at the end of the day, I'm doing a session with Ellie Boombarger, and she is a Fictionary certified story coach editor. And we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about how taking an editing course can help you become a better writer. And so that's another place to bring any of your story editing questions. Okay, so we're 2 minutes after. We've got a big number of people here. So I'm going to start, just go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so you should be seeing Story Garden Summit Day 2, the editing journey, how to lay the groundwork for a successful story edit. Now I've lost the chat, so I'm going to assume that that's okay because I can't see the chat. So somebody ping me somehow if you're not seeing this. Okay, so we've got a lot to cover. I'm going to give you just a quick intro of who I am. So I am the CEO and founder of Fictionary, and I started Fictionary after I wrote 3 novels, and I fully understood at that point the complexity of what it takes to edit a novel and how truly hard it is. And also I had a passion for it. So the company kind of evolved from something I was doing for myself to something I share with others. My most recent books are Secrets to Editing Success, which I co-authored with Lucy Cook, and she is our head of community and training, and then Secrets to Outlining a Novel. And our latest one is coming out April 12th, which is Secrets to Writing a Series. You already know I'm a fiction author because I said that. Who is Fictionary? So we are all about the theory of story structure, and we provide that theory in our books, in our app, in our community. We have software that helps writers from a structural level, and we have a community where we have live guided editing courses where you can actually edit your manuscript while you're working with us. So if you think of writing sprints, but a little more participatory, it's that kind of thing. Our team is small, and I wanted to just show you our people because I'm pretty proud of them, and they do an awful lot of work with a very small group. So Duran is our development manager, and he wrote the very first line of code, so he's been with us for a while. Ife is our product manager, so she's the liaison between the community and the development team, figuring out what to build next. Lisa, some of you already know, and she's our chief marketing officer. Lucy, head of community and training, and Millie, our newest addition, is our content manager. And then I co-founded with my husband, Matthew. So we're a husband and wife team running our company. So that's all you need to know about us. I'm going to start with what we're talking about. So you've written a novel. And if you were like anything like me, the first time I wrote my novel, I thought, okay, I've done that. I have 80,000 words. I had no idea what to do with it. So I just kept rereading it and playing with the prose and thinking, oh, I could write this better. And I got particularly stuck on the first scene to make sure that was perfect. But in the end, that scene wasn't even in my book. So I figured out there's got to be a better way, right? And so we're trying to answer the now what question of, you have a novel, what do you do? Okay, so you story edit. And story editing is a structural review and revision of your manuscript. And so how we like to look at it is you review your novel first from very high levels of, do you have a story, down to each scene level. And once you do that, you make a revision plan and you actually make your changes. If you make your changes too early, that means that you probably are editing scenes that might not even be in your novel. We look at the story arc, characters, plot, and settings, and we don't look at prose. That will come later in the next session, or 2 sessions later, with Pro Writing Aid. And why do we do this? Because if there's no structure, there's no story. And if you don't have a story, you don't actually have a book. So I'm going to stop sharing just for a second so I can go back here and see nobody's having issues with actually seeing Fictionary. Okay. How did I get the idea for Fictionary? I was literally, I created this huge spreadsheet, hundreds of columns for every scene in my books. And I was sitting at my computer working away. And my husband said to me, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm writing. And he kind of went, in Excel? And I went, well, yeah, because I need to know my entry hook and my exit hook. And I need to figure out all these things. And he said, well, there's an app for that. I'll go find it for you. So there wasn't. And so we decided, oh, we should do that. Both Matthew and I have a mathematics degree and he has a computer science degree. And so the two of us combined did it together. So super fun. All right. I will now go back to showing my screen. I love the hearts. Thank you. And I think I just figured out how to look at both things at the same time. So that will be much more helpful. Okay. So this is what the app looks like. So I'm just going to bounce over to the app right now. So this is the Fictionary software. And when you first come in, we give you a journey to follow. And we look at the story blurb. We look at the story structure. So naming your scenes. What does the story arc look like? We look at the word count per scene, scenes per chapter. How is that impacting your structure? And then we go through the point of view, tension and conflict, scene structure. And Lucy and Lisa Taylor are going to do that in the next session, timelines and settings, story goal pacing. And then at the end, you review everything, because when you go through this process, you make a lot of changes. And those changes are going to change the shape of your story. And when that happens, you want to make sure it's still strong, that you actually have a story. Okay, so I'm going to go back to here. We're at the story garden. Okay, so the first thing you saw in there is write a skeleton blurb. And CJ talked about this a little bit yesterday, and this is about knowing what's your story. And you kind of have to know what your story is before you start writing. At least for me, it helps a lot. And so all a story or a skeleton blurb is it's who's the protagonist, what's their goal for the story, and what's at stake. And this is something you use as the author. It's not meant for anybody else. It's for you to stay focused on your story while you're editing it, so you know from beginning to end what you're trying to achieve. And if you write one of these, and I highly recommend you do, and everyone at Fictionary knows that I just really talk about this point a lot, is it keeps you focused on what your story's about, and it gives you a way to assess, does every scene belong in your novel? Okay, sorry. Now what I wanted to, no, let's go here first. So what I want to talk about first. So the first thing in a story blurb is who's the protagonist? And this is a big question. It's really a difficult thing because there's so many definitions around what's a protagonist. So we look at it as an entity point of view. So I'm going to look at 3 books. One is The Bridgerton, The Duke and I by Julia Quinn. The second one is, and it's a historical romance. The second one is The Wedding Date by Yasmin Gulleri, and it's a straight up contemporary romance, and it is a beautiful, it's a beautiful book to look at from a structural point of view because she has nailed it perfectly. And then, of course, we're going to look at Game of Thrones because who is the protagonist in a Game of Thrones? So I'm just going to quickly go over to the Bridgerton series here. And so for a story blurb in Fictionary, just hover over that. Well, you can go here. We'll do it this way. So story structure. Nope. Sorry. Story blurb. First thing you do is add your story blurb, and a pop-up comes up and it shows you who's the protagonist. And I'm going to show you why I think it's Daphne. What's their story goal? So her goal is to show Simon he's worthy of love. And I'll fix my typo. The story stakes are if she doesn't do this, they will never have children. And so that's it. It's very simple. When we look at The Wedding Date, here, we'll look at the story blurb for The Wedding Date. So here, Alexa and Drew must overcome their feelings of worthlessness. Otherwise, they won't find their happily ever after. So this is a very typical blurb for a romance plot. Doesn't mean the story's not unique because it is, but it gives you a guideline around it. These two are combined protagonists, and I'm going to show you why. Okay, so I'm going to go back here. Is there eternal crying emoji? Okay, I didn't need to answer that. Okay, so let's look at, my apologies, I have to go over to my screen here. There we go. Okay, so let's look at what is a single, combined, or group protagonist entity. So for a single protagonist, it means if there's two characters that have a major role, they're going to have different goals for the book. They're going to have different stakes, and they're going to have a different journey. And what I mean by journey in this case is every scene either takes the protagonist closer to or farther away from the story goal, whether the protagonist is in the scene or not. And so in a case where there's a single protagonist and another main character, that journey is going to be different. So one scene could take the protagonist closer to the journey, or sorry, closer to the story goal, and the other can take the other main character farther away. And that's a distinguishing factor. We see a combined protagonist very often in romance novels where they have the same goal, the same stakes, and the same journey. So that means every scene takes both of them closer to or farther away from the story goal. And then we have the most complex, and that's a group entity. And that is where there's one main goal for all of them. The stakes are different, maybe the same for some characters, but not for all of them. And the journey is different. And so one scene, again, takes people further or farther away from the story goal. So if we look at The Duke and I, and this is the first book in the Bridgerton series, and she fits this into a series by having each book is from a different protagonist point of view, and it's always a Bridgerton sibling. So if we look at how do we decide, is this a combined or a single point of view, right? And this is a way you can test it. So if you have two characters that you think are protagonists, write a skeleton blurb for each of them. And so in this case, Daphne must show Simon he is worthy, otherwise they will never have children. That's what she's striving for in the story, and the stakes for her are that she won't have children. Simon must stay single. That's his goal. Otherwise, he will end up having children. So you can see the conflict here already of one, and I'm going to give spoiler alerts just so you know. One, they will never have children, and the other is they will end up having children. So this is a single protagonist story, even though they both have points of view. And I'm going to show you how the points of view play out with it. And again, if you go and read this book, which I highly recommend you do, just for the structure of how to have a single protagonist with a secondary main protagonist. Then we look at The Wedding Date. So the two characters, one is Alexa. She must overcome her feelings of worthlessness, otherwise she won't find her happily ever after. The same is exactly true for Drew. And so these two have the same goal. Every scene brings them closer or farther away from that goal. So this is a combined protagonist, Alexa and Drew. And the important thing to know here is that it doesn't mean the reader sees this. The reader doesn't actually know what's a single, what's a combined, what's a group. You as the author and the artist have to control this depending on what you want the reader to experience. What story do you want them to see at the forefront? And so you get to decide this. Nobody else has to know this. Game of Thrones, super interesting. So this is the overall goal. So there's a lot of characters, but the story is the humans must defeat the White Walkers, otherwise humans cease to exist. So this is a group of people striving for the same end goal. They want to defeat the White Walkers, but they all have different stakes and they're all on a different journey. So this means the humans are a group protagonist fighting for what they want. All right, so once you've done that, now you know your story. Oh, Emmy knows hers. Yay. So once you know your story, so who's the protagonist, what's the goal and what's at stake, you can then move on to some structural things. And what we recommend when you first start, you have your draft, you've got your 80,000 words, it's broken up in some form of chapters and scenes. You name each scenes, or you can just use our AI in Fictionary to name them for you. And we recommend this because first, it tells you what the scene is about. So you know in a very few words what your scene is about. And it sounds funny to say that, but we all get excited writing. I tend toward the discovery writer side of things. So I need to have a way to go, did I actually write what I think I wrote, and not just some great scene that really is just a great scene, but not part of my story. And you also get an after draft outline. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you, I want to go to my example manuscript over here. Okay, so this is just an example manuscript. And if we go up on our top page here, so we're again back in Fictionary, and you can see along the side here, there's names. So you can either just go to the plot tab and you can name this. I'll just put letters here so you can see it over on the left, anything you want based on what you think the scene is about. Or, and Lucy and Lisa will go into this in a little more detail, you can just click this button here and this will name everything for you. And what that does is it gives you a view from the AI's perspective of what the scene is about. And here's the most interesting thing. If it names something that you don't agree with, then it's time to go back and read that scene and figure out why. So the focus of that scene is not what you thought. And so AI got it wrong. And sometimes it's really wrong because the scene isn't focused. It's too long. There's too many characters. It can't figure out what the point of view goal is. And so it's taking a guess at it. And that's the time to go back and really look at your story. And once you've named all your scenes, here we are. So once you've named all your scenes, you can click here on Scene Name under the Plot tab. And what this shows you is an actual outline of your story. So we have this scene name as Husband's Funeral. Here's the inciting incident. Katie collects Daisy. And you can see where your scenes hit. And you're going to see why this is a problem here, that what it's showing for me is that the scenes hit, you're seeing your story arc scenes drawn for you in the context of your story. And you can really start to look at it and understand if it has the right structure or not. Okay, so that's naming your scenes. Then you're going to identify the story arc scenes. And this, what you're looking for, we've brought it down to 5 key scenes. So your inciting incident, plot point 1, the middle plot point 2, and the climax. And I'll go through each of these for you. And you're doing this first to determine, do you have a story? And I'm going to explain to you why, if any of these scenes are missing, there's not a story yet, and you still have some writing to do. And you're also doing it so you have an objective way to really evaluate the story structure and the pacing. And so you can look at your own manuscript and figure out what it needs, or what you already have. That's fantastic. So if we go, I'm going to go over here, and I'm just going to show my story arc for this manuscript. And you remember I showed you we had a problem? Okay, so here's what the story arc is showing you. This is the starting point for this manuscript. And what we want to do is get rid of any blips like this. So this is fine. The inciting incident is seen to quite early. That's great. But what this is showing you, and I'm going to explain again how this works, is plot point 1 is really late in this story. And what that means is from the inciting incident to plot point 1, it's dragging. There's too much in this piece of the novel, and it could be too much description, too much backstory, scenes that don't belong in the novel, etc. And when the plot points are too close together, this means the story is lacking depth here, and the reader might start to skim. And so you want to look for, are there scenes here that don't have enough description, don't have enough detail, don't have enough action, whatever it is, there's something missing here. And so when you start revising, you're going to build up here, and you're going to cut back here until this gets a little bit more solid. Okay. So Roxanne, the whole idea of having the scenes named, I know it makes it so much faster, doesn't it? It's just like, thank you. Okay, so what we're looking at now, I'm going to take you through each of the plot points. So the inciting incident, we're going to use the wedding date as an example, and really it's such a good, it's structured so beautifully that it's totally just, if once I pointed these out, then if you read it, you'll really be able to see what these scenes are, what they're doing, where they are in the book, and then you can take that knowledge and apply it to your own story. So here, the inciting incident should be somewhere between 0 and 15%. And I just want to caveat that it can actually happen before the book opens, like the first book in the Jason Bourne series, where he's shot before the book opens. That's great. It's in the blurb. We know what happens, and the reader just starts off going forward. So in the wedding date, an inciting incident in a romance is when the love interests meet. So they have to meet sometime. CJ talked about this yesterday, that they should meet on screen. So on the page, people want to see this happen. They don't want to see it in a flashback. They don't particularly want to see it. It's already happened. So somewhere between 0 and 15. And this is where in the wedding date, Alexa and Drew meet in the elevator. So if you don't have an inciting incident, let's say we don't have this scene, if the love interests never meet, there's no story. So you don't even have a story yet. It's just not there. It has to happen. And this applies to all genres. If somebody isn't murdered, there's no murder mystery. There just isn't, right? And so all genres have an inciting incident. Then if we look at plot point 1, this is where the love interest sparks in a romance. And so there'll be different criteria for different genres. But I'm just using romance because this is just such a beautiful example. So in the wedding date, this is where Alexa and Drew have started this pretend relationship. It's a fake relationship to get through this wedding. And if they don't move from this fake relationship to a real relationship, there is no story, because there is no romance, and this is a romance story. So in this case, this is when they have their first kiss at the wedding, and they make the move from we're just pretending to be a date to, ooh, it's really a date. Then we look at the middle plot point, and the whole purpose of the middle plot point, from plot point 1, mostly the characters are reacting to what happened there. And this is where we get into the real character depth and the character growth, again, that CJ talked about yesterday, of, the character grows through the story. And here what happens is it's usually a false victory or a false defeat. And in the case of this story, the main character, Alexa, her friend suggests that Drew is cheating. It's not true, but if this doesn't happen, if she doesn't have some doubt here, then the story's over, because they're already at a happily ever after moment. It has to be in here that something is changing the direction. And at this point, Alexa now turns from reacting to this relationship to being proactive and figuring out what's really going on. So she thinks Drew is cheating. This is what she takes away from it. So this is her false defeat in the romance. Then we have plot point 2, and this is where does 2 things. The protagonist is at their lowest point in the story, so this is where they feel their worst. And also they get the last piece of information they need to move forward to either achieve or completely fail at the climax of the story. So in a romance, this is the breakup. And here, Alexa leaves Drew. And if she doesn't leave him, if they've already resolved their issues, the story's over. There's no more story. And she needs this plot point because she needs to be forced to learn that Drew truly loves her. And she has a lack of confidence in the story. And this is her character growth to go from I'm not worthy to I am worthy of this love. And then we have the I love you moment. And there's many different variations of the I love you moment. It happens between 85 and 95% in the climax. And this is where in a romance, the love interests get together. So if we look at the wedding date overall, you can see the inciting incident is at 1% into the story. The plot point 1 is exactly 25%. So it is dead on. The middle plot point is at 50%. The plot point 2 is 82. And then the I love you moment is 98. So what I want to point out here is the flexibility of the story arc, that it's a true guideline. You're the artist and you're looking for what's going to work for your story. And in the case of this story, there's not much resolution needed to finish off the story. And so it works at 98%. And so this is not to scale. It's just obviously just a drawing to show you this. Then we'll look at the Duke and I. And for the Duke and I, we've got a quite different story arc. So the inciting incident is where the love interests meet. So Simon and Daphne, blend their name, meet at a ball 11% in. So that's great. Again, we're in a fake dating situation. Simon offers Daphne fake dating. So that's 24%, right where it should be. And you can see, even though the concepts of these novels are the same, they're very, very different. At the middle plot point, Daphne saves Simon from a duel. They get married. At the plot point 2, the lowest point, Simon abandons Daphne, and then at 83% is the I love you moment. So you can see this one is a little more traditional in its story arc, but both stories really work for the reader. Both were very commercially successful. Oops, where'd we go? There we go. Okay, so that's the story arc. And once you've done that, what that means is you actually know you have a story. So when you know that you have the inciting incident, plot point 1, middle plot point 2, and the climax that are doing the right things in generally the right place, you've got a story. And so the next thing to do is to edit each scene. And what this is an in-depth evaluation and revision of your story. And you're looking to see that every scene moves the story forward. And this really comes down to what's the purpose of the scene and why is it in your story? And you want a great story. So a great story is a collection of great scenes in the right order at the right time. And Fictionary is going to help you do that. And again, we're just giving you boundaries of what to look at. So when we look at a scene level, things we consider are character, plot, and setting. And so I'm just going to give you a few. We've got 38 Fictionary story elements we work with within the app. But if we look at point of view goal, and what if the goal fails? The point of view is who the scene is being told from. So they're the character who's striving for a goal within the scene. And the what if goal fails is a really interesting element, because if there are no consequences, there's no tension. So if my if my goal for a scene is just to get from point A to point B, and if I don't get there, it doesn't matter, there's no tension in the scene. If my goal is to get to point A from point B and I need to get there, or my love interest is leaving on an airplane, there the what if goal fails means I have happily ever after. So it's important. And I want to show you something very interesting on point of view characters. So if you remember, with The Duke and I, that's a single protagonist story. And if we look at the character insights in Fictionary, I'm going to go to point of view characters. So here's what I want you to note. So Daphne is the protagonist for this story. She's the protagonist for 56% of the scenes. I'm just going to switch this over so you can see a little bit of how it's broken out. Simon, main love interest, he's only 36. There's a narrator for 6%, and there's one scene from Anthony Bridgerton's, which is only 2%. And so this is giving you another indication that though, even though this is a love story, Daphne's clearly the protagonist in this story. Then if we go over to the wedding date, and I'll do the same thing. And we'll look at our point of view characters and look at this. So this is a combined protagonist. Daphne, or sorry, wrong book. Alexa is 54% and Drew is 46%. So they're pretty tight. And then if we look at Alexa, Drew, Alexa, Drew, Alexa, Drew, she's really balancing the story on their who's got the point of view to make these two equal. And the other thing she does that's brilliant is she will have, so they have an opening image here, so you can see by the scene name, and this is where they meet. And it's also the inciting incident. We get Drew's reaction to the exciting incident. We get Alexa's reaction to the exciting incident. So here comes the character development. This is where they're at the beginning of the story. And this scene is showing us there's the start of the character arc. Then we go through the resistance, the growing, the self-doubt. And you can see I've put the names in here to show Drew, Alexa, Drew, Alexa. And so they go through the bumpy road between plot point one the inciting incident and plot point one. And then we have here a lead up of where they're at as characters from both Alexa and then Drew's point of view to plot point one. Then we get plot point one, which is the first kiss at the wedding. And then we get the reaction from both of them. And so as you go through here, you can really see how the author had control over what she was doing with her point of view characters and what character arc she's showing to the reader that's important for the story she wants to tell. Okay, so then we have, oops, that's not what I meant to do. Let me just escape out of that. Sorry about that. Okay, so then we have, back to control. We have plot, and Lisa and Lucy are going to go over this in more detail in the next session about purpose of a scene, tension and conflict. And then we have setting, which is basically, if you look at your location, so where is the scene happening? And this is an often underutilized story element because you can put a couple in one place where, let's assume they're having a huge argument. If both of them can just walk away, there's not as much tension. But if they're stuck, say, on a ski lift and the ski lift breaks down, there's a lot more tension because they can't get away from each other and they have to fight it out or sit there silently or whatever you decide as the artist. But the chosen location can really help you increase tension and or conflict in your story. Time is another one. If a reader doesn't understand the timing of the story, scene 2 is 20 seconds after scene 1 or 2 hours or 2 weeks or whatever it is, they get confused. They're drawn out of the story a little bit. Objects, and particularly in something like a fantasy novel, can be really important to track throughout your story so that you know, as the artist, what are the key objects you're using and why are you using them and how are you using them to drive your story forward. Okay, so once you've done all of the structure that I'm showing you and you've done all of the stuff that Lisa and Lucy are about to show you, you're going to test your story structure. And what you're doing here is you want to confirm the placement and timing of your story arcs. And you want to ensure that your pacing still works. And really, several things are going to happen when you make your revisions. You're going to change the text and you're going to edit your scenes. So this means you're either making them longer or shorter, which then changes the structure of your story, or you're cutting them all together, or you're adding new scenes, or you're moving scenes. And all of these things change the structure. And our goal is, I've lost my share. Am I sharing? Someone just type in the chat, am I actually sharing here? I think I'm not sharing. Okay, thank you. Let me just try that again. We'll go back here. This is what I meant to be showing you. So why are you testing the story structure is what I was talking about. And the goal, this is what I want to share here, is this was the original story arc for the novel Evolution. And this needs to be fixed. And after I've done my revisions, I'm looking to see, is this back here and my other plot points are generally in the same place. Sorry about the sharing issue. Now we'll go back to this tab. Okay, so when you're in Fictionary, we give you an editing journey to go through. We're starting at the high level structure, getting down to the scene level, and then going back to the high level structure as you make all your changes. All right, so that is the finish of this. I just want to talk about Fictionary Live a little bit. So Fictionary Live is within our community, and they're online courses taught by a Fictionary certified story coach editor. And we have them running year round. They're usually an hour long. So you get a bit of theory and then you work on editing your story. It's very interactive. You can attend these courses as many times as you like. And we have people who go through them 3 or 4 times to really, really make sure they're editing their story. So our next round is starting in March 28th. And you can join our community if you would like. And then that's where these sessions are accessible. They come with our Storyteller Premium software subscription. So just by subscribing, you get access to these. And we cover novel editing part 1 and 2, 6 weeks to outline your novel, how to write scenes using deep structure, tension and conflict. So you can see that one's just a 1-hour session, not a 6 weeks course. 6 weeks to edit a romance novel. Story flow, how to write a synopsis, 6 weeks to outline your entire book series. And so we run these to help people just continually work on their story until they get it to a place that they're happy with. And then my final chart is, before we go to Q&A, is our special offer. So we have our story writing and editing software, which I just showed you a little bit of. We've got our guided story editing courses, which is Fictionary Live. And then we have our community. Community is completely free. All writers and editors are welcome. We've got people from over 53 countries. We've got people at all stages of their writing journey. We have new editors, professional editors, people who want to be editors, and we combine the whole thing together. And we are very proud about how kind our community, and we love it. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. And I'm going to go, my goal was 11:38. Perfect. Yay. I will go to questions now. And I'm just going to start. All right. So I'll just start going through these. And thank you for people who've put your questions here. I am going to do 10 minutes and then we're going to cut so everybody gets a little bit of a break between the next session. But I will be at the tables and I will be at the final session. All right. So the first question is, I'm really hesitant to purchase anything that is subscription-based. We don't have a lifetime option right now. And the main reason is we use a billing system that doesn't have it. So we have annual and monthly. And until we get that sorted from a technical point of view, we're kind of stuck with monthly and annual. We do have a 2-week free trial. We don't ask for a credit card for that. So you can come in and try it at 0 risk. All right, so this, I'm just going to pop up here. Brittany asks, AI makes me nervous with the book training content theft happening. How does Fictionary keep our content safe? Okay, that's a great question. We, first, you don't have to use it. So it's always by a button. It won't automatically do it. So you can choose to do everything manually because I'm a writer. I totally get this, why it's so important. The other is that we're using, we work with Google and we're using their Vertex AI software. And our contract with them is that there is no learning on the manuscripts. And that includes Fictionary. We don't learn from your manuscripts. And that content can't be used, can't be copied. It's safe within the Fictionary environment. We chose to do this because I believe that people who are writing books want to write their own books. They want to be the artist. And so my goal with AI is to help you edit faster. It takes a long time to name all your scenes. So Fictionary can do it for you. You get an outside view. We're beta testing, evaluating tension and conflict right now with a large group of people from our community before we go wide with that feature. So they tested first to tell us it's working, how they want it to work, and then we'll go live with that. That was a great question. Thank you. Okay. What was the coupon code? Lisa Lepke, throw that back in the chat for me. That one's easy. How did you get the idea for Fictionary? I think we talked about that one already. Is there going to be a PDF with this information? My hand is cramping already. Troy, are we doing that? Maybe Troy can answer that in the chat. I'm not quite sure how attachments and things are working. So I'm going to leave that for Troy to answer because, he's in charge here. Okay. Then, we got lots of hearts and happy faces there. Okay. Okay, can you please explain the differences in detail between Fictionary and Autocrit now that beta reading feature that tracks? Honestly, I haven't used Autocrit in a long, long time, so I don't know the answer to that. They used to be more on the copy editing side, and I haven't really kept track of them. Oops, I meant to mark that as answered. Okay. All right, so let's put this on stage from Anne. What if you're a discovery writer and you don't have all the elements you need in the blurb? Do you recommend writing the blurb after writing a rough draft? Okay, writing the blurb is for discovery writers. So if you write a draft without having a goal in mind, so you don't know. So if you're writing a murder mystery and the climax scene is either going to be the murderer is caught or the murderer is not caught. Those are the two options. If it's not one of those, the story's not finished. So as a writer, you at least have to know the protagonist must find the killer. Otherwise, the killer will kill again or goes unaccounted for, is unaccountable for it, or whatever the stakes are. That without knowing the goal, my worry is that it's just a loose story that isn't a story yet, and you're going to end up writing a whole bunch of things. Again, though, if that works for you and you're the artist, that's great. We also use, if you write, so say you write your first draft, if you then come back and write a skeleton blurb, which we think everybody should do after writing a first draft, you'll know if your story is focused. So you'll know if your climax scene is addressing the story goal. And I've edited a few books where the climax scene was fantastic, but didn't answer the story goal. So from a reader's perspective, it's not over. And the story blurb or skeleton blurb is going to help you do that. Okay, so that's that one. So this one, do you have to have your book done to use Fictionary, or can you use it on a per chapter basis? Great question, Thomas. Thank you. We have, you can outline and write a novel within Fictionary from any stage that you're at. You can import a partial manuscript and finish your novel in Fictionary, or you can import a full draft. It's totally up to you and where you're at in your story. I will say about the story arc, though. The story arc is about analyzing the full structure. And so it's going to look kind of funny until there's a full story there. And it will build as you write. And at some point, you're going to go, and there it is. I've got my story arc. I can now move forward. I know I have a story and move forward from there. Okay. Will Fictionary work specifically for romance? Dun, dun, dun. Yes. Okay. So what we have right now is we have, when you write and outline a novel, we put in the outline for just commercial fiction. And we're now coming up with, you'll be able to do we'll do an outline specifically for romance and then fantasy and then mystery and that kind of thing. And you can see by looking at the wedding date, you can see very clearly how she structured that with all the reaction scenes to the key story arc scenes and the lead up scenes. And when you look at Bridgerton, you can see again her control over the point of view and whose story she wanted it to be. And so all it means is when you're looking at the inciting incident, you're looking for the scene where the characters first meet. That's it. When you find that, that's your inciting incident for romance, and you go forward, kind of like the example I just went through. Okay. This one, where's my stage button? There we go. This one is, can Fictionary identify my scenes or beats for me? I may be lazy, but actually suspect that a new writer do not solely understand what a scene is. So again, can Fictionary identify? Okay, so scenes, if you don't know, so if you start with chapters, and we actually have on our YouTube channel, we have a whole hour webinar on how to distinguish between what's a scene and what's a chapter, and it's a big discussion. So you can import your manuscript with just one scene per chapter, and Fictionary will evaluate it that way, or you can have multiple scenes. And scenes are just a piece of a chapter. It's a little bit like beats. And if you think of, books where there's like, a star or a scene break character between in a chapter, a published book, you can see how the author has designed that. And Fictionary is designed so that if you don't know that, when you're editing a scene, you'll be looking for entry and exit points, and you'll learn how to determine what's the best text to have in that scene. And so it's Fictionary is it's really about a learning tool for newer writers to try and learn how to write a really solid story. Okay. Oh, we got a few minutes left. Okay, so the next one is, will this work with a manuscript that's complex, multiple timeline, multiple point of view? Yes. So you can, the point of view insight that I showed keeps track of your point of views for the story. So you know exactly how many scenes each character is in. You know when they have the point of view. You know how many scenes are in a character. And so you can look at all of those things and determine, is that the intent you wanted? And if we look at Bridgerton again, you can see Daphne's got the most point of views. It's her story. And if that's what you want as an author, great, do it that way you can see it. And if we look back at The Wedding Date, equal scenes almost. So clearly a goal on the author's point of view. Multiple timelines. So there is a timeline setting so you can keep track of the stories. There's various ways. You could use purpose of a scene to show timeline 1, timeline 2. You could use the flashback field to show where you are in the timings, or you can just use the timing field to do that. Okay. Okay, is Fictionary available in other languages? I don't mean necessarily translation, but yes. Okay, so we've got any Roman character-based language. So we have German, French, Dutch, Swedish are the ones I know about. So basically all of the commands are in English, but Fictionary will still go through and pull out what you need from it. Okay. This one is there a way to format your draft before uploading into? Yes, there is. Okay. Thank you, Donna. Great question. So if you have multiple, if you have single scenes in a chapter, just either use heading 1 or name your chapters, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. If you have multiple scenes in between 2 scenes, not at the beginning or at the end of a chapter, but just in between, use a scene break character like 3 stars or a tilde, or, not an image. It has to be a text character for Fictionary to pick it up. On our website under support, we have a very specific description of how to format your manuscript if you want to have a look at it there. How does Fictionary judge tension? Well, love that question, Brittany. Thank you. It judges tension. Our new feature coming out, we're using AI, and we're basically, we did a lot of prompt engineering to get it to be something that really helps the writer. And so the easiest way to look at it is, there's a point of view character who has a goal, and what if that goal fails? And it pulls out tension from that, because if there's no consequences, there is no tension. And the same with the conflict. If you have conflict in a scene, but it's not making it harder or easier for that point of view character to achieve their scene goal, then what that means is it's not conflict related to the story. And so it's just a fight happening, and that's boring for people, that it's not related. It's just some scene of people fighting. But if that fighting helps or hurts the point of view character from achieving their scene goal, then it's related tension. And so we're working on a whole bunch of things in that way to do that. Okay, so let me just skip through here. This is all my slides aren't showing. Okay. I'm just looking for one more question. I'm going to go to, oh, Donna, I just randomly picked a question, Donna. Does Fictionary Live apply to early chapter book writing? If it's chapters, yes. It does not do, I can't think of the word, young children's books where it's all pictures. Picture books. There we go. I worked my way into the word. Okay, so we have nine minutes left. So I'm gonna call it there, and everybody can have a little 10-minute break before we get to the next session, where you're going to hear from both Lucy Cook and Lisa Taylor on how to objectively evaluate your manuscript and find issues. So they're going to go into the next level of detail. It's a great talk between the two of them, and I hope you love it. So we'll see you all later in the breakout room and then later presentations. And there we can end it for now.